Hey everyone, welcome back to Bytes Digital. This is Joseph. I haven't seen you guys in a while, but we're excited to finally be bringing you guys more interview content. And today we're going to be hopping into more of the Cosmos world. Everyone has been familiar with Mars Protocol. They have been a huge development force in the entire Terra ecosystem that everyone has been familiar with. But now their new direction has really been announced, and we're starting to see the flourishment of Mars inside of the Cosmos IBC world. Larry, thank you so much for joining us today. It's my pleasure to welcome you onto the show.
Glad to be here.
So, Larry, what's your background in Web3, and would you care to do just a short introduction for this video?
Yeah, so I'm a relatively newcomer in Web3. So I came from a science research background. I spent almost 9 years, 4 years undergrad, 5 years in grad school in biochemistry, trying to do cancer therapy related research. It didn't quite work out for me. The research didn't go well. Job perspective was poor, but I happened to started investing in crypto at the time, and I started building stuff because I see there are things I want to have, but nobody else has built it. So I just went on learning smart contracts, learning front end programming, and just did it myself. And employment opportunity came. I quit my school and become a full-time developer. So that was my background.
Amazing, thank you.
All right, so I want to go ahead and get into what is kind of the Mars's vision going into the new direction you guys are going approaching into the IBC world. I know that back in the day, Terra was focused on getting a new lending platform, but it seems to me that you guys have since evolved there. But what do you guys see the new vision of Mars being?
Well, first of all, this is not exactly a new vision. We started working on a new interchain plan back in April. So that was before Terra crash. It's just that this Terra crash made this thing a necessity, not a good to have, right? So our opinion is that lending protocol is a must-have for any DeFi ecosystem. If you want to build one, it doesn't matter if you're an AMM or you're an order book DEX, you're whatever kind of DeFi application you are, you need a lending protocol in your ecosystem, because the things you're able to build are just so much less if you don't have a lending protocol. So in the coming years, we expect to see a lot of different Cosmos chains with their own kind of features popping up, and we want Mars to be the one protocol that serves them all. That is the overall idea.
Great. Yeah, so Larry, just digging into the project a little bit, would love to understand the lessons and experiences that you learned from, the Terra collapse and how that has, helped you guys make the decision to move into Cosmos, to move into Osmosis specifically to start, which we'll get into in a little while, I'm sure. But yeah, how did that experience last May, really shape what Mars has done since then?
Right. So Mars was launched in March, and we had a run for 2 months, and then everything came down. So in retrospect, I would say our 2 months on Terra Classic had been relatively successful. We had a TVL about 200 million. We had a few leverage yield farms. So these are farms that farm Astroport LP rewards on leverage borrowed from Mars Protocol that had about $40 million in TVL, no exploit, and even during the crash, our liquidation had been highly orderly, I would say, and our protocol had been mostly be able to maintain solvent even in that kind of an absolute apocalyptic situation. So I think the outcome in the end was good. We did learn a lot of valuable lessons from that. I think if there's one takeaway note from that experience is that we shouldn't put all our stakes in one ecosystem, one chain. Just like if you're making a personal investment, you need to diversify. If you're building a protocol, it also needs to diversify.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, and the IBC ecosystem definitely caters to that. If you don't mind, I would love to just go back to one thing that you said to start is that every ecosystem, every protocol needs a lending system, right? I think traditionally we have seen that lending system definitely be catered to the user rather than to the protocol. But it seems like Mars, has a very interesting approach in sort of catering to both ends of the system, right? So any user, in theory, could go in and use Mars lending protocol like an Aave, correct? But then Mars has the second edition of more smart contract lending, and that's where you get the leveraged yield farming as an example, right? Do I have that correct?
Yeah, I think that sums up pretty well. So lending protocol like Aave or Compound, we think there are two main drawbacks. For depositors, the issue is once you put your money into the protocol, they are locked inside the contract. They can be lent out they can be borrowed by other users, but you don't have any control of your deposited assets anymore. You cannot say, I want to put my assets into a yield farm. Well, the protocol will not allow you to do that. For borrowers, the drawback is that in order to borrow, you need to first be a depositor first. You have to put in collateral first. I think so. Those are drawbacks on both ends. We have this idea called a credit account that basically tries to tackle both problems. That we have to make clear that credit account is not our we are not the only one working on credit accounts. There are other protocols like Gearbox on Ethereum, which is doing a great job. But I think we are working with a better framework. Cosmos and Cosmosverse is just a technical stack, a pleasure to build on. I think we can do it even better with our better tech stack and our designers and product people.
You mentioned in your answer previously that Cosmosverse is just a joy to build on. And my primary question is, of all the IBC chains, why did you select Osmosis as your next chain to build on?
Well, so Osmosis is the biggest chain in Cosmos ecosystem right now in terms of economic activity. So if you look at trading volume, the amount of users, and Osmosis is just the biggest, and it has the most profitable yield opportunity based coming from the liquidity incentives they're putting out, and you just don't have this level of yield opportunity anywhere else in Cosmos ecosystem. So, in our opinion, Osmosis is the best business opportunity. So it's kind of a no-brainer at this point.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess that my other question would be, let's dive a little bit deeper into how the tech stack for Cosmos benefits Mars Protocol. Is there any advantages that you guys see building on Cosmos versus, say, like building on a Solana in terms of tech?
One good thing, well, there are a lot of good things about Cosmosverse, but I'll just name a few. Cosmosverse is implemented as a portable module. So if you build a Cosmos chain and you have experience in it, you can literally add Cosmosverse to an existing chain in 5 to 10 minutes, nothing more. So it's very portable. Anyone builds a new chain, they can very easily add it, and any contract that implemented for Cosmosverse can run on any chain that includes this module. So basically, we are building for one chain, run everywhere. If you think about Solidity is its own language. It is created specifically for the Ethereum virtual machine, but Cosmosverse leverages existing programming languages. So you can write the contracts in multiple languages theoretically. In the future, currently Rust is the only one well supported, but in the future you can write contracts in any language that's supported by WASM. So what this means is any innovation that those languages make, we will benefit from it. So a recent example is Rust had an upgrade that quite massively reduces the binary size of contracts. So if you write your contracts in an older version of Rust, your contract may be, say, 400 kilobytes, but you just upgrade your Rust version and your contract magically shrinks to 200 megabytes. That shrinks by half on that level of degree. That is an example of an innovation made by the Rust language, a completely separate team, and we benefit from it. So that's just a very cool thing to have. And let's just say Rust is a very good language. Its toolchain is great. It's a pleasure to write in Rust compared to write, let's say, Solidity or Python, for example.
Yeah, I think just going back to the decision to build, an IBC and build on Osmosis first. I think in all of these systems, right, a stable coin is a super important, underpinning to the validity of the system, right? In Terra, we did have UST, which worked extremely well, for a while. But when you move into IBC, I feel like the stable coin picture is a little bit more clouded, right? Do you see, I guess Osmosis made the move to, accept Axelar, USDC as like their canonical stable coin. Do you think that, Mars plans on accepting that as well? Or do you see the stable coin sort of picture in IBC playing out a little bit differently than that moving forward?
Right. So for Mars to support an asset, there are several requirements. First being there must be sufficient liquidity. We need liquidity first to establish a reliable TWAP oracle. And secondly, we need sufficient liquidity for carrying out liquidations, which is really important for maintaining the protocol solvency. If you have shallow liquidity, your oracle prices can be manipulated, or if you do a liquidation, it massively changes the price. That's very high risk. So if Mars wants to support a stable coin, it needs to first establish deep liquidity on the chain it is deployed on. Secondly, our community will have to review the asset listing proposal and assess the risk, such as smart contract code quality, and if there are centralization risk. So if it is a centralized stablecoin that can be turned off, can have a blacklist added by the regulators, that's a risk. I think our community should take that into account when deciding whether to list the asset or what kind of parameters to give to the asset. So we have a framework, a procedure for this. So back to your question on stablecoins, definitely I personally would love to see Mars support a wide array of stablecoins. They can be decentralized ones, centralized ones, as long as they meet the requirements and go through our risk framework.
Yeah. So Larry, going off, what you said, what was the decision, right, to start Mars's sort of entrance into IBC with an outpost on Osmosis rather than focusing, the time and resources on getting the Mars app chain up first? Or is that something that is happening in parallel and I'm a bit off base there?
Yeah, this is a question that I'm expecting to come up a lot. So for context, the architecture that Mars has chosen is we are going to implement our lending market in Cosmosverse in smart contracts, and we are going to deploy that on multiple chains. So we are going with Osmosis first, but we're also going to put it on a number of other chains, which I don't want to name right now, but a number of other chains. So an alternative approach is what Umi is currently taking, that they are building an app chain and they are building their lending market as part of the app chain L1 stack, right? So in the short term, I do think Mars will have the better experience, because if you think about what do you need to do in order to let's say, make a borrowing on Umi. Well, that's a multi-step process. First, you need to IBC transfer your collateral to Umi app chain, and then you make a deposit transaction there. Step 3, you make a borrow transaction there. Step 4, you transfer your borrowed asset to your destination chain via another IBC transfer. So that's 4 transactions, 4 buttons to click at least on your wallet app. So that's friction, in my opinion, and that kind of degrades user experience. On Mars, you can just, because your yield farm, let's say you're farming on Osmosis, our lending market and the yield farm are on the same chain, so we can streamline the user experiences a lot. You only need to click once, and it just does everything. So no IBC transfer, no need to wait for multiple blocks, right? It's just one transaction, one block, one click in the wallet app. So in the short term, I think Mars will have a better UX. In the long term, I think the difference will be smaller as we keep improving IBC. For example, we can have these with interchain account. I can totally imagine we can reduce the number of times you have to click in the wallet app to interact with Umi, right? So I think the cross-chain UX will definitely be better for this Umi kind of design in the future. So this difference will be smaller. So at this point, I don't really think there is definitely like a definitive one is better than the other. This is something we have to keep experimenting and keep innovating and see what happens. Another good point favoring the Umi approach is because it's its own chain, the protocol has control over block production. The protocol can itself captures MEV. So liquidation is a very good source of MEV. It's a very big source of MEV. If I deploy my lending protocol on a generalized execution layer such as Ethereum, well, the Ethereum block producers will capture those MEV. But if I'm my own app chain, such as Umi, well, I can define my own block production logic that will allow the protocol to capture those value and distribute that to token holders, for example. So Umi potentially has a better value accrual in that regard. I think the Osmosis team has some very good take on this so-called protocol-owned MEV. So definitely check out their conversations. Yeah, but overall, I think my answer is still that which architecture is better in the very long term. It's something we have to keep experimenting in order to find out.
Great, thanks.
Okay, that was actually a really interesting answer from my end. I mean, obviously, I got burnt and hurt by the UST dismay. I'm just interested in kind of this whole conversation of the growing Cosmos ecosystem and that concern of liquidity not truly existing within the IBC ecosystem. Do you see this being an inevitable situation where liquidity just arrives within Cosmos, that once you build these superior like smart contract platforms, that liquidity will eventually just arrive? Or do you see there being kind of a new rise of liquidity just being birthed within Cosmos as like its own, just basically an internet of blockchains, or the whole thesis that they have?
In the short term, I think business development is kind of more important than tech at this point, especially in a bear market. That's my assessment of the current situation of the market, which can well be wrong, right? I'm not known really for my good assessment on the market, Yeah. So, but from a tech perspective, I do agree that I think the better tech will have an edge in the long term. And I do think Cosmos is the better tech, which is why I'm so invested in it.
And I think going off that, right, there is this concept of, interchain, like superfluid staking, and Mars, touched on, interchain collateralization a little bit, right? So it's this ability for like all, app chains to work together, or devs to build, contracts that allow the app chains to communicate together, and it's sort of a rising tide lifts all boats in a way, right?
Yeah, what you just mentioned is something that still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
So like interchain collateralization it's not easy. It's not something that will happen overnight.
So, okay, so that I think that's a good opportunity for us to kind of dig deeper into the immediate future of what Mars is looking at. From everyone who's following you guys along from the Terra ecosystem, what things do they have to look forward to? What kind of launch items are you guys targeting from a development standpoint?
Mars protocol was built at the point that was back in early 2021. At the time, Cosmosverse tech was still quite immature. A lot of change had happened since then. There are a lot of new good practices for coding that has been agreed upon by the community that wasn't established at the time we wrote Mars protocol. So what I meant to say is the code quality of Mars is not that high from the current point of view, but at the time, nobody knew how to write Cosmosverse contracts. So we tried our best. But for now, we're taking it as an opportunity to re-examine the code of Mars, massively improving the code quality, revamping everything. So that's one thing. The second is that, as you probably know, Mars will deploy on multiple chains. So we want the code to be very minimalist, very lean, without extra complexities. We want to make it as simple as possible, and chain agnostic as possible, so that it is manageable even if we deploy that on many chains. So these are two things we have been working on over the previous weeks. So you might be wondering why other Terra protocol have been able to go to market so quickly. Kujira is doing tremendously well, launching so many things, but Mars is taking time very slowly. Well, that is the reason we have a lot of work to be done on the technical side. But once Mars is launched, I think the experience you can expect should not be too different from Terra. We are going to have basically two products. The first being our traditional Aave compound style money market, where you deposit collateral and borrow against that collateral. That should be quite familiar if you have used Aave or Compound or Mars back on Terra Classic. Another thing we have been working on, which has been is the credit account model, which I mentioned earlier in the interview. I also have a forum post describing the architecture posted on Mars forum. You can take a look if you're interested. So what credit account is a more average user-facing model of the lending protocol. So basically, it will allow a user to deposit collateral while still maintain control of that collateral. So you can deposit some of your asset, you borrow some from Mars Red Bank, and you put them both into a yield opportunity. For example, an auto-compounding vault or a staking derivative, so that you are doing leverage staking, right? So that is the more user-facing product that we think will drive a lot of the borrowing demand for our lending market. So a lot of component on the front end has been redesigned as well. So I can't go into too much detail, but just from an average user's point of view, I think it looks really nice, the front end. Probably one of the best design front ends you have in DeFi. Yeah.
That's really exciting to hear. I wanted to ask a little bit. I think what I'm hearing, I guess what I'm understanding is that we're in the bear market. Like development is going to be the priority here. We're going to be building for a while now. But we all know that that's kind of what the vision and path for Osmosis is. The Osmosis is going to be slowly decentralizing its automated market making structure, going to be giving out this governance token. So the token emissions for Osmosis are pretty large, and they're going to be sustained for the next like 3 years. And I know, Larry, you're a contributor over at Osmosis, and you're pretty well known over there at Osmosis. You actually are known as the stake validator person. I wanted to kind of just ask a question. With that relationship with Osmosis, do you feel that the current Mars trajectory kind of synergizes with the overall roadmap of Osmosis over the coming years?
So my opinion is that when we design a protocol, let it be Osmosis or Mars, we should design for the end game. So in the very long term, Osmosis will have reached its max token supply. It will not have any more incentives to give out. I think the protocol design should aim for that stage where you cannot rely everything on handing out free tokens. And we have seen a lot of instances where on Ethereum, on other chains, where once the protocol runs out of incentives, it just gets abandoned by users. It doesn't have any moat. It doesn't have any strong technical advantages or differentiations with competitors. So that is something I think both Osmosis and Mars should take into mind. Instead of just a DEX that doesn't have any differentiation from competitors, you really need to build something that has a unique experience that will retain user even if you are no longer handing out tokens, right? And I do definitely think Mars will play a role in that. As mentioned, I think every protocol, every DeFi application, whatever it is, needs a lending protocol. So a lending protocol just offers so much opportunity, allowing you to build many things, including leverage, right? Including a yield opportunity by depositing into the lending market. I think that the amount of things you can build on Osmosis with a lending protocol is just so much more compared to if there isn't a lending protocol. So I think Mars will help Osmosis to like increasing its moat to build a more products and better user experience without the incentives.
I'm so excited to see how the competition just kind of develops throughout the entire Cosmos ecosystem. I think we already kind of touched on the general roadmap, the general expectations from users' perspective. I know that you guys are heads down, building, innovating, and focusing first on the product. But want to touch on any alpha. Is there kind of anything that you want to mention or hint at or share with the audience that might excite them about the future of Mars?
Right. So Mars is it's hosting a special side event at Cosmosverse conference. So I think I'm not organizing this event, but I think a public registration will be available soon. So definitely follow the Mars Twitter account, and that's where notifications will be posted. So something might be announced at the side event. Maybe, I don't know.
Just a little sprinkle of alpha right there.
Yeah, that's one. And secondly, if you are coming to Cosmoverse, prepare your Capital Wallet, install Capital Wallet on your phone. You need a Stargate address. So Stargate is an NFT chain. You want to at least have a Stargate address available when you come to Cosmoverse. It's NFT stuff. Something might happen. I don't know.
Yeah, I did see that on Twitter as well. Jessica and I are both going to be there, so hopefully can make it to the Mars event, and if not, get the alpha at least. Get some swag. I think a Mars hoodie or something maybe would make the trip to Medellin worth it.
I'll be there. I'll have my wallet. I'm excited.
It's an exciting time just for like Cosmos in general. So I'm really excited to see the development. I know that we're in a little bit of a long period of market development, but thank you to everyone for watching this video. Thank you, Larry, for coming on to the pod. I appreciate you taking the time to actually chat with us about what's going on in the Mars world. If you guys are interested in staying in tune with what Mars Protocol is doing, I would follow Larry's advice and check out his Twitter at Larry0x. Very popular guy on Twitter. A lot of people respect Larry in the entire crypto space and Web3 world. Has been contributing a lot to the Osmosis world and is clearly innovating on Mars Protocol. So check out the Mars Protocol Twitter, and they will also be at Cosmosverse. Larry, thank you so much. I hope you have an incredible day. And thank you, Connor and Jessica, for joining me on today's interview. Well, we'll see you guys in the next one.
The content on this channel is for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing we say or do should be considered advice. No tax, legal, accounting, investment, or any other kind of advice. Anything you invest in is at your own risk. Do your own research and consult with professionals.